It's 6 o'clock. We're going to call this meeting to order. And we would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional and unceded territory of the Algonquin Nation. I would now ask everyone to stand for the national anthem. Thank you, everyone. And our first motion is moved by Bill Everett, seconded by Philip Smith, that the agenda for the regular meeting of council to be held on April 8th, 2025 be approved as, or are there any amendments?
Yes, there are, Madam Mayor. We will be having closed session under section 239 2A and 2B.
Okay, and that's it. So approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor? Carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in general nature thereof by any member of council? Duncan and Nikki.
I'm declaring conflict of interest on item 10G, which is the vendor report, because I own a business on the list.
Okay, and Nikki?
I'm declaring a conflict on item 6A as I have a professional relationship with the delegation.
Okay. All right. So we've noted both of those. Moved by Nikki Gowdy, seconded by Cindy Kelsey, that the minutes from the regular meeting of council held on March 25th be approved as presented. Any amendments or discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Yeah. Okay. Mayor's remarks. I have a few. The first remark is I want to let folks know that Dr. Bell has officially given his retirement date, which is June the 30th. Dr. Bell's been with us for 54 years and is already feeling the weight lifting off his shoulders as he's prepared to actually have a summer off, probably the first in 54 years for sure. So it's sad to see him go, but we have to thank him very much for everything he's done for this community for all those years. The other retirement is Craig Buckeye from the newspaper has decided he's retiring. He's had some health issues and it's time to hang up his pen. So congratulations to both of those fellows. Also, some staff news. Steve Gould has finished the Public Works Leadership Development Program. And his two courses were financial management and talent management. And both of those were, one was at 90% and one was 83%. So congratulations, Steve. The other staff is Jody, who has finished the two assignments in finance with AMCTO. And her final mark was 98%. She did get 100% on one or two of those. So brings her average up to 98. So a couple of smart cookies that we've got working for us. Thank you guys for all the work you put into that. The other thing is some save the dates. First, there is a one-day conference called from AMO. It's called Rural Healthy Democracy Forum, and it's going to be held in the municipality of Mississippi Mills, and that's on June the 11th. And it's a registration fee of $50. So Kathy has the information if anybody's interested on getting more details. The other thing is coming up, another anniversary of 50 years reunion of the Rural Frontenac Community Services. That's going to be held on June the 7th, and there's an open house from 11 until 4, and then there's an actual meeting that's going to be held. This is cut off.
Yeah.
It's
cut off.
October at 6:30, and I think it's here
Yeah.
in the hall. So we'll talk about that more as we go by. And last but not least, we are now into ATV season, I believe, as of April 1st. I'm not sure if it's April 1st or May 1st, once it dries up on the trail. Something new this year is ATV and side-by-sides and OHRVs have to have a permit now on the trail. And the permit has to be either through Frontenac ATV Club or the Eastern Ontario Trails Alliance. And the membership's $150. And you can get the trail permits at a number of places around here, as well as directly through Eastern Ontario Trails Alliance, and the ATV Club through the Verona Club is where that comes from. So I'm sure this is all on the website as well, but that is new. The cost of keeping the trail maintained needs to be done by the users, so that'll certainly help. It won't cover all the costs, but it will help. So that's, and the plunge happened on Sunday in the midst of a snowstorm, but there were, I think, 15 people that were plunging. Our Susan didn't go because she was ill. So she's probably in for next year, we hope. Anything else happen in other areas? Nikki?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This Saturday, April the 12th, is the District 4 Easter Party at the Piccadilly Hall from 10 to 12. There'll be games, a hot dog lunch, there'll be an Easter egg hunt, pictures with the Easter Bunny, lots of activities.
Great, okay. And I do know that the helicopter drop, that the Arden Group are bringing a bus of kids down for it. So that's great. Philip?
Just a reminder that Earth Day is coming up and each of the districts, the recreation districts, are organizing some cleanups. So if you watch their Facebook posts, you'll see dates and how to assist and how to get the trash picked up from along the roads. So.
Excellent. I see some have already started some bags along the way. Good stuff. All right. If there's nothing else, Deputy Mayor? All right. Next, we're going to move to delegations, and we have with us tonight Mario Texiera. Mario, come on up to the table. And we're going to talk about the mailbox policy. If you just push that button until the light goes green. There, okay.
Hi, good afternoon,
Speak right into it, Mario.
Good afternoon to everyone. My name is Mario Teixeira. I have initial J and my middle name. I live at 1060 Brooks Element Road. The reason I'm here is, as my understanding was a policy, I forgot the year, about, the snow plows. They're not responsible. And as far as I know, I've called all the townships around Charbot Lake, the snow plows, they're responsible. And the other thing it is, I think we should know what kind of insurance policy the snow plows have. Because every vehicle on the road, they have insurance. Whatever damage they do, they have to be responsible. Why the snow plows in Charbot Lake, they're not responsible? That means if they hate a child, if they hate a person, they're not responsible? To me, it makes no sense. Like, I'll replace my mailbox today. Tomorrow it will happen again. I have to replace it. I don't think that's right, not for me, for any citizen in Charbot Lake. And I think, I hope, there'll be some change made to that. That's the reason I'm here today.
Okay. Thank you. We do have the policy right here, and it was dated February 1998. So we've had that in place since 1998. Any questions or comments for Mario? Okay. If none, thank you very much for your presentation. We'll take it into consideration as to whether or not we will want to change the the policy for mailboxes being destroyed by our plows.
Yeah,
Just push that button before you leave. Thank you. Okay, I have a motion moved by Duncan McGregor and seconded by Bill Everett that council receive the presentation from Mario Texiera regarding the township mailbox policy for information. All those in favor? Carried. And there's no public meeting. Consent agenda, moved by Dan Meeks and seconded by Philip Smith, that council approve items A through D for information. Any discussion on any of those? All those in favor? Carried. Deferred items, U.S. tariff response. And bear with me, this is a long one. Moved by Nikki Gowdy, seconded by Dan Meeks. Whereas United States President Donald Trump continues to threaten executive orders to impose tariffs on imports from Canada. And whereas these tariffs will have a significant detrimental impact on the economy's stability in both countries. And whereas our Prime Minister and Premier are encouraging Canadians to choose Canada and to choose products made in Canada. And whereas municipalities have significant purchasing power through capital and infrastructure programs. And whereas we must stand united and strong to meet this moment and protect our communities. And whereas municipalities can assist in the effort to combat tariffs and support businesses in the procurement for capital infrastructure programs. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Township of Central Frontenac only purchase products made in Canada whenever practical, and when not in violation of trade agreements and legislation in all of its purchasing decisions, including increasing current invitational and open market thresholds in the procurement bylaw to enable targeted purchases from Canadian suppliers. And further, that this resolution be forwarded to the Prime Minister Mark Carney, Premier Doug Ford, MPP John Jordan, MP Scott Reid, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and all other municipalities. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. All right, we're now at staff reports, and planning is the first one. And Sonia is with us. And this is on additional service report, severances report, sorry.
That's quite all right. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. Thank you very much for your time this evening. So we had appeared a few months ago to address a resolution asking for an increase in the number of severances in your official plan policy. And at the time, staff had recommended that any work on that wait until after your community had had an opportunity to have a discussion about how it would like to grow using communal services. And that's something that's coming up in about another month's time. At that time, council collectively, that motion was defeated. So we went ahead and we started a little bit of the work. And the reason I'm here tonight is I want to show you what we've found so far. Because again, I would say that staff, both county planning staff and the township staff, feel that there's not a strong likelihood if we move forward with the rest of the research, we're going to get you the answer that you want. So I just want to walk through. I don't have a formal presentation, but I have had a number of slides made up that basically reflect the maps that are in the report tonight. So again, I want to highlight that the need for increasing the number of severances that you allow needs to be justified based on your projected growth for your municipality and the availability of land. So we cannot base it on the wishes or desires of residents in certain districts wanting to have more severances. There has to be a municipal-wide need for more land for more growth. So this is sort of the beginning of the research. The first thing is to look at the amount of vacant land currently in the township. Now, we had assistance obviously from the county GIS, which is Geographic Information Systems, which is it's a fancy word. They do a lot of work with data and mapping. So all the great maps that you see our GIS team. So what we did is, and this isn't based on zoning, it's based on MPAC data. So MPAC has different ways of classifying land, and there's different types of vacant land. So essentially, we had them search for all vacant land in the township. But then we went back and we had them take out anything that was identified as conservation land. So those would be lands that would be owned by a conservation authority or a land trust, and anything that they had classified as open space, because those are usually designations that are given to parks, usually owned by public groups such as the municipality. And so they came to just over 2,300 parcels of vacant land, which is what you see here in the darker orange on the maps. Now, I will say, if we continue with the research, one of the more detailed and time-consuming work is to then take this and start applying what we call screening criteria. So you take out lands that are within, say, 120 meters of wetlands or 300 meters of a quarry. So it's quite an extensive exercise. But just to show that right now we are starting with a lot of vacant land, acknowledging that some of this, of course, part of the screening criteria would, besides the environmental factors, would be looking at access in terms of road. But this was the first step. And the next map, please. So the next one was to look at severances. And so we went back just within the last 5 years, because we know that it was very, very busy during the pandemic in terms of the number of severances. So each of the different colors and symbols show a different year, but collectively in terms of severances, there were a total of 163 severances. So of that, 112 had already had their certificate of official issued. Now, for those listening in the public that might understand, is when you get a severance, it's conditional on you fulfilling a list of things that you get from the committee, such as a formal survey, making sure taxes are all paid up, and when you've proven that you've met all those conditions, you get what's called the certificate of official. So when you look at the difference and the disparity, that's because it usually takes a couple of years. They have up to 2 full years to fulfill those conditions. But if you look at 2020 to 2022, 92.5% of those consents were completed. So there have been quite a few lots created within the last 5 years, particularly in 2021 at the height of the pandemic. Next slide, please. So the next map we looked at is in terms of existing properties in the township. What have we been looking at in terms of building permit activity, specifically for dwellings? And so what we found is that over the same 5-year period that we've been looking at from 2020 to 2024, there were 200 building permits issued within the township for dwellings. Now, that included both whether they were categorized as seasonal dwellings or permanent residential. There were 200 in total, which averages out to about 40 permits a year. And then the final map, please. And then what we asked GIS to do, unfortunately, it's the yellow dots you're looking for, and I think they're the hardest to find on the map. But we wanted to show on one map, okay, tell me where the severances for the new lots were and where the building permits for the new dwellings are. And only over those same 5 years, and only 11 of them matched up. So you had a lot of lots created in a 5-year period, but only 11 of them have had homes built on them, or seasonal dwellings, whichever that may be. So to me, what that says is there's a very slow uptake in terms of the need for the housing. So again, based on this preliminary research, it's staff's opinion, again, both county and township, that this is to do the rest of the exercise is not something that is the best use of staff time and resources at this current time. So in terms of time spent so far, township staff, particularly Abby, was very, very good about pulling together all the raw data. So she said she spent about 8 hours doing that. I checked with the GIS coordinator, Robin. She spent about 16 hours correlating and analyzing the data and producing the maps. And then for myself, I'm in at about 4 hours. So in terms of county hours, that's about 20 hours. We had predicted that it would be anywhere from 100 to 150 hours in terms of county time. And if you look at that billing out in terms of our service agreement, even at the low end, that's about $13,000 worth of time if we were to go ahead and pursue the full study on it. So certainly there are lots of other things that we feel that we could be doing for the township or for the county as a whole, even using the GIS. Ultimately, the decision is council's as to whether or not you still want us to pursue this research. But we wanted to let you know what we had found at this point, basically to get your approval or not as to whether or not we should continue down this road. Because I will say at this point, from what I'm seeing from the numbers, I don't think we will land at a place that is going to provide the justification you want for making that change to the official plan. And so it's my recommendation. I don't want to see you waste that time and really the money that goes into that staff time doing work that isn't going to result in you getting what it was you wanted from it. So happy to take questions.
Okay. Any questions or comments? 2,300 lots. Like that's a lot.
So I will
That's
say,
a
and
lot
I
of
think
lots.
it is, it's a lot of lots. And so it's interesting because this week we met with township staff and had a discussion, and I know Jenny was here today. And something I know Jenny and Abby have been talking about is that one of the things that we run into a lot with people is getting them to be able to have proper access, legal access to their properties. Because if you don't have frontage on a public road or even a private lane, then you're not even allowed a building permit, let alone being able to get a severance. So one of the things that Abby and Jenny check for, one of the first things is, okay, well, if somebody comes in and wants to do a severance, okay, where do you live? Where's the property? They need to know what kind of access that they have. And right now, my understanding, what I've been told from staff is that there isn't a great record in terms of conditions of roads. So at least not one that's, I mean, there's probably people in public works who could tell you right away exactly what condition the road is, but it doesn't help the office staff when they're working with an applicant. And so one of the things that I've been pointed to is that South Frontenac, with the help of the GIS team, has created a mapping system for all their roads that says, okay, this road is public, these roads are private, these roads are maintained year round, these roads are only maintained seasonally. This is a township road, but it's unmaintained. So you know, as soon as you look at the map, and it also tells you how far. So sometimes a road is owned by the township and maintained, but only up till this point, and then after that it's not maintained. And so I've been told by staff that that would be a much more useful resource for them to spend their time on this summer, particularly if we've got a student helping us with GIS, to be able to have that information for people when they come in and they want a building permit, or, you know, they want to potentially sever something. So that's just one example. And because I think a lot of those lots do have potentially some access issues, right? So.
Yeah. Okay. So certainly some students and some winter time when staff aren't so busy can work on that project as well. Questions or comments? Dan?
If somebody, thanks, Madam Mayor and Sonia, if somebody come in with an application and everything fits and follows the guideline, why do we have to make it so hard for them to sever if, in fact, everything's in place? Why can't our planning department at that point make the decision and go further with the severances for the applicant?
Beyond 3?
Yeah.
A retained
Yeah,
into?
I'm for the severances. I think we should go ahead with the program.
Well, through you, Madam Mayor. So the main reason behind that, again, with everything that we do with municipal planning, comes from the direction that we get from the province. And the direction from the province is that we should be encouraging the majority of our growth to happen in our settlement areas. And that, you know, development on rural lands should be limited. Now, it's up to the municipality to define what that means. So again, it's not impossible to change the number, but you have to have some kind of justification as to why you're doing it, and it has to be tied to the growth of your community. And like I said, we said before, we're not averse to having a look at it. It's just, A, do you want us to spend the time on it? And B, for us, we're about to have a really important conversation about the use of communal services in your community and how that's going to help your communities grow. So is that, is that something that needs to happen before or after? So it's again, for us, it's not personal. It's us trying to follow the provincial rules that we've been given and the framework that is in your official plan, that provides guidance to the decisions or the recommendations we're supposed to make to you about your decisions.
I guess the other thing is, do we have people coming in who want to sever more than just two? Like, are they standing in line? Duncan?
I'd like to proceed with the project. Whether we see it right to the very end, I'm not sure. I just know by looking at the mapping of the 2,300 vacant lots that we may have within the municipality, I think very few of them are actually accessible by road by looking at the map. So I'd like to see what's actually a building lot versus just a vacant lot that we have within the municipality.
So Duncan, if students were to put the road system with the lots over the summer, that would be a helpful tool.
No, I think the program that Sonia was speaking of was to basically quickly identify whether the lot is on a road or not. I
Yeah,
don't know how that will help us with the total count.
That's what she suggested the students would do over the summer, right? Yes.
Because right now, I'm not sure if we absolutely complete information. There is probably some other screening criteria we could do. We could probably, take it a little bit further in terms of some more time spent on what I call the screening criteria. So are you, do you have access? And it's just, I'm not sure. And it's really, I have to raise the question with respect to folks, whether they have the data that they need in order to use access as a full screening criteria. I'm not sure if they do.
So I guess to clarify what I'm saying is I think we should proceed with the project as of now. It doesn't mean that 2 months, 3 months down the road, I'm not going to change my mind and say, you know what, I agree with you. Let's scrap the project. But I think the project should go ahead as it's, as you've already done some good work. And I think we can keep this up.
All right, thank you. Usually it's red for it's on and it's blank if it's off. So the red, green, really, yeah. Okay, thank you. So I guess, would you like to see like another iteration of the vacant lands map after we screen out some more issues such as access, such as wetlands, such as pits and quarries and that sort of thing? Because maybe that's another step we can work on before doing all of it. Before, and that would maybe be mostly a desktop exercise before we start sending people out into the field and that sort of thing.
I think that's what I'm hearing is maybe just keep going the next steps as we go through. Nikki and Philip, you both had your hands up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Sonia. This is a great first step. I know that there's a lot of people that aren't going to the township office that are interested in that aren't going in and inquiring because they know they've reached their limit according to the official plan. So they're not going in and inquiring, but they're raising concerns over having the opportunity to do a third seventh. And those are the ones that we are coming to you with over those the concerns. But yes, I think that we need to keep going forward with it because there is an interest there. And if 2,300 is a lot of lots, but how many, as you said, how many of the 2,300 are even usable lots that can be used?
Thank you. I just wanted to kind of echo Councillor McGregor's comment that a lot of the yellow blocks are not going to be accessible. And you made a comment about some of them being, excluding the Conservation Authority lands. Some of them are conservation lands. I know because we rent a number of them. So for hunting. But the other comment I have is around, I know the province wants to see settlement areas built up. However, we're in a rural municipality and people come here for a rural municipality, so they don't necessarily want to live in the hamlets. So for us, the policy decision would be around that's the kind of environment we want to build. And the roads that we do have, if you do a severance along 38 Highway, we're already maintaining 38 Highway. It's not adding new services. And And whether they're sitting there as vacant lots, I mean, it's not a huge revenue maker, but I mean, each new lot adds additional roll numbers with new tax revenues.
As well, is that staff are certainly, we are exploring, and I thought we had a discussion with Joan and Sonia and Jenny yesterday, in the legal end of it, as because there are a lot of folks coming in and wanting to develop the lots. They buy big parcels of property. Part of the road we maintain, the rest of it we don't. They can't build on that. So there's a lot of those lots out there, and that seems to be where the demand is building off of those, because some of the other areas, like the built-up areas, and certainly on 38 has, people aren't, developing necessarily there right away. And same as number 7. I think there's potential for lots on Highway 7, but just sort of to let you know that we're exploring this other avenue as well, because that may make a lot of difference, because they cannot build on it. And legally, we're trying to figure out how they can go about doing that as well. So,
Which in
Just so
the
you know.
old days is what subdivisions were for. So that you put in your roads, you built your houses, and then you turned that over to the municipality. But there aren't a lot of people doing subdivisions anymore because of the cost. So it doesn't seem to be the way to develop
I think
much.
as well as the additional severances, because I think most of the folks are not coming in to get extra severance because of the costs and the time frame that it takes. Is that not correct, Abby? Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is we want to keep looking at what there is, maybe not do the whole full review, but go the next couple of steps to see what is real on the ground instead of the whole $20,000 bill. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay. Nikki.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to clarify, so we want to go ahead with it, and if we're feeling positive, and if the opinion comes out that there is a potential for it, are we still allowed to say that we want to go further with it?
Go the next steps.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Philip?
So I'd just like to ask, Madam Mayor, who says no? Like who ultimately says no? If we look at this as a housekeeping item where we want our official plan to mimic other municipalities that have similar lot creation limits, who's the authority that says no, even though staff and planners are saying you don't necessarily have a need for these more lots? I'm just curious, who's the authority that comes back and says, no, Central Frontenac, you're wrong and you can't do that?
It used to be the province, but now it's the county, I believe, isn't it?
That's correct. So the County of Frontenac has delegated authority for all official plan amendments made at the township level. So ultimately, it would come to county council, whatever the decision is made here, which is why we want to make sure that we have a solid basis to be able to recommend any change that might come forward.
But in order to do that, the county has to look at the provincial policies
That's correct.
that say
Yeah,
under what circumstances you can approve it.
that's correct. Yeah.
Justifications.
So
Sorry, this is going to sound bad and I don't mean it to sound bad, but it's a little self-serving if staff are saying, no, there's no justification for it, and they're the approval body. So that's a little difficult to swallow.
it's a different situation. What you can do is you can hire a separate planner to do this work for you and then present it to the county, who are the authority to approve it or not approve it. You probably will get the same answer either way, because whoever the planner is has to follow the provincial policy rules as to what in the end means you need to do more. That's the way I understand it. Dan?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Any added severances is more income for the township. So, I mean, it's income with taxes. So, I mean, any added severances is more money for the township, in my opinion.
Okay, so at this point, we're going to keep moving forward to see what we've got. And then after this next stage of putting the roads with the lots, we'll bring it back and have another discussion about the next steps. Is that reasonable, Nikki?
Yes, it's reasonable, and I agree with you. I just want to follow up on one more comment that Sonia said. She said it was very helpful, the work that South Frontenac did to help the planning staff be able to answer residents' questions. How much work is involved in doing something like that, Sonia?
In terms of the mapping for the roads, I'll be honest, I don't know. We just sort of had that initial conversation this week, and it didn't actually involve anybody from GIS, and it would be a very time-consuming project for them. And the reason why, I think originally I was going to come 2 weeks from now, and the reason I actually wanted to come tonight is that about 4 weeks from now, planning and GIS will both have interns for the summer for 16 weeks. And I don't know about GIS, but at least on the planning side, we do not include any hours that our intern works in the billing that we give to the township, so that the cost of the intern is completely covered by the county. And so if there is additional work to be done, ideally, whether it's on the roads or it's on the severances or it's both, it would be ideal to try and get as much of that done as possible over the summer. And so that could be one of the things that the planning and GIS intern work on together. But I don't yet know. I think if we were interested in doing the kind of mapping that South has for their roads, I think we would have to make that request to GIS in terms of what data do they need, and how long do they think it would take. So like I said, it was just a conversation we had yesterday, so.
And also too, I know the CAOs will be meeting with Southernet, and I can certainly speak with Louise and see with their planning staff and everything.
I know it's great to have GIS, but I would think if you could put a map of each district and give it to the roads guys, they could pretty quickly tell you which ones are maintained, which ones aren't, which ones they stop here. And then you could put the GIS on top of that. I would guess Steve and Lance take a day.
So
And
through
we
you,
do
Madam,
have a
that's,
list.
yeah, that's what I was indicating when if we were to do that project, we would require some assistance from the Public Works team because they're the boots on the ground and they
Yeah.
know what's out there, so.
And you could also add all of us onto it too, because most of us have driven all these roads. Duncan?
How long approximately will it take for the county and township staff to come back with kind of the information that we've kind of requested? So like to get a more clear picture using your filter or criteria to identify how many lots we actually have that are building lots available.
So through you, Madam Mayor, not including the roads piece, I don't think it would probably take that long. I would sit down with the GIS manager and we would they call them queries. So it's like, what are you asking the computer system to do? And it's like, okay, take out land that's within 120 meters of a wetland or 300 meters from a quarry. And that starts to like scale things down in terms of where those developable envelopes are. Because I think that's really what you're saying is like, we have all these lots, they look vacant, and that looks great. But ultimately, the area on those lots that could actually be developed, may be very, very small. It's the access one that would take a little bit longer to do. So
Just with the search criteria, would a month, 2 months, like should we be deferring this motion just so it doesn't have to come back for reconsideration? Defer it for like a month, 2 months?
oh, I see. Instead of defeating it and passing another motion,
Yeah.
giving direction. That would be fine. I would just be really reluctant to tie a time frame to it right now, but when we would be back, certainly we would try and come back by the end of the summer before the students leave, because ideally they're going to have that work done by then. But because this work involves the GIS department, and I haven't spoken to, I did have an initial conversation with the manager about the severance work and maybe some of that being done this summer, but I haven't had a conversation about the roads, so.
So I'd like to motion to defer till the first meeting in June.
Could I suggest that we take it to the summertime? Because students are going to come. It's the busiest time right now with work coming in at the spring. That's only 2 months away.
But
May
I
and
think we need
June.
to, so the filtering we're talking about, or I'm talking about, is not actually physically boots on the ground. It's a desktop exercise, like you said. And we need to know what direction we want our students to head in the summertime. If we wait till the end of the summer to identify, are we proceeding with this? We've lost that resource.
But it's the county student that's going to be doing this, right?
Yeah.
Philip?
Sorry. I think there's two separate things, Duncan. One is the severance, but I heard that we're potentially using a student to do the roading, which is going to help planning staff. So I think they're two separate things. But I did want to ask about the mapping and the vacant land. So if the mapping was just vacant land, what about larger parcels of residential properties? Like, do we not see severances happen on 50 acres where there's already a house and they would sever off additional lots?
So through you, Madam Mayor, I'm sorry, I'm afraid I don't understand the
Like
question.
if we're looking at vacant lots, so we're just looking for buildable sites.
Mhm.
I think you're also throwing out larger residential parcels that could be severed to create lots. And it might not be the same exercise, but I'm just saying there's a lot more property out there than just vacant land that could be severed.
Right. No, I understand. I think, but part of the exercise is first showing how much vacant
What the
land you
inventory
have,
is,
because inherently a vacant lot, unless it's like a complete swamp, you inherently have the right to build a home on a vacant lot, right? When you want to do a severance or you want to build an additional dwelling unit, that's when permissions start coming in. But generally, if you buy a vacant lot, all you should have to get is a building permit.
Okay, so this exercise is just about the vacant lot inventory, not.
So the vacant lot inventory is one piece of the overall research that's done as part of the severance.
Yes, because I think there are large parcels, and certainly some of them were farmlands that are no longer farmed. Like even off the Zealand Road, for instance, there's a few down in there that's got like 400 acres with just the one house on it. So, and it's going to depend on the topography because a lot of it's rock, but there is all of those as well.
Okay, so we have a deferral suggestion. So it's moved by Duncan, seconded by Nikki. That, do I read the motion?
Yeah.
Okay, that
It's just going to be deferred.
it's moved by Cindy and seconded by Dan that the Council of the Township of Central Frontenac chooses not to proceed with the review of additional severance permissions in the official plan at this time. And that is suggested to be deferred. All those in favor of deferral? Carried. So deferred. All right.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sonia.
We'll be in
We
touch.
will be talking again. All right. Now we are at Development Services. Andrew. Does anybody call you Andrew? Your mother.
Sometimes.
Only when you're in trouble, right? Okay, I have a motion moved by Dan Meek, seconded by Duncan McGregor, that council receive the construction details report, March 2025, as presented by the chief building official for information. Any discussion? Nikki?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Hi, Andy. Great report as usual. My question isn't about the report. I think back in January, we had asked about a report coming forward about the comparison of mandatory versus voluntary septic numbers. I was wondering where you were at that with that report.
Through Madam Mayor to Councillor Gowdy, I believe we've got to have a reinspection meeting coming up, and I will have it ready for that meeting. Is it issues versus compliance that you're looking for in that report, or just whether issues were found?
I think I was personally looking for numbers of bad systems.
Okay. I did look into that, and I was actually surprised at how many deficient systems were found in the voluntary, because I know a lot of people feel that people won't volunteer if they think there's something wrong with their system, but generally most people want to know if their system's working properly or not, and most people are willing to fix it if they think it's causing a problem. Yeah.
I know that we were planning to have the meeting at the end of the month, 28th, but I think one of the members of the committee would like it moved because they can't make it. So we'll have to maybe look at the 1st of May, but we will be. And at that time too, because I was speaking with Eric Colesmith to get the numbers and the report from them for the 2024 year. Okay.
Okay. Any questions or comments on this construction detail report? All right. All those in favor? Carried. Andy, anything to point out to us on this report? It's getting busy?
Starting to pick up. Usually the 1st of May would be the time it picks up once half loads come off.
Right.
Just to follow up on Sonia's report there, the provincial policy statement there and the rules, I don't know. In my experience here in the township, people are moving to Central Frontenac to get away from settlement areas, but it's unfortunate that the policies don't support that kind of development, but that's what I'm seeing here in the township.
As a person that lives kind of way out of the way, I can understand that. Okay,
Thank you.
all those in favor of the motion? Carried.
Thanks.
Thank you, Andy. Now we are at Public Works. And we have a gravel contract extension.
First, you need the March activity report.
Oh, sorry, March activity report. Moved by Philip Smith, seconded by Bill Everett, that council receive the March 2025 Public Works activity report as presented by the Public Works Manager for information. Any questions or comments on the report? Anything you'd like to say to us, Steve?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I just want to give a shout out to the Public Works staff and the crew over the last couple of weeks. They put a lot of long hours in and they're pretty dedicated. So I just want
Yes.
to tell them I appreciate it.
For sure, and crazy weather, up and down and like yo-yos. All right, Philip.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Steve, I just wanted to ask about sand reserves, I guess. I mean, we're getting closer to the end of the season and how you're feeling about where the stocks are now, knowing that we've pulled some money out of the budget for salt and sand for the next season.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Right now, I feel it's going to be close. It's going to be tight next year probably, but I think we should be able to do it. We got about a half to a quarter of a dome left right now. So should be close.
And let's hope we're not going to have to sand any more roads for a few months. Okay, all those in favor of the report? Carried. Now we are at the gravel contract extension. So I have a motion moved by Duncan McGregor, seconded by Nikki Gowdy. Whereas Gemmell Sand and Gravel was awarded the gravel contract in 2024, and whereas the Public Works Manager and owner of Gemmell Sand and Gravel have discussed an extension of the 2024 contract for 1-year term as provided for in the original contract. And whereas the addition of the comprehensive full-service package of a water truck, roller, packer, grader, and gravel haul would generate cost savings to the municipality. And whereas the Public Works Manager recommends extending the contract with Gemmell's Sand and Gravel at the agreed price of $475,260.46, excluding HST. Now therefore it be it resolved that council approve the recommendation of the Public Works Manager, and further that council authorize the mayor and CAO to sign the extension agreement. Any discussion? Duncan.
Through Madam Mayor, in the report, it says there's a modest increase in the price. Approximately how much is that increase from last year?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it's approximately $1 a ton to have a water truck, and like it just frees up our staff so they're not all tied up with the gravel. They can still grade and do whatever brush, do whatever they need to do. It seemed pretty cheap and a no-brainer. So
Okay. Nikki.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a few questions. Usually when we do the tender, you give us a list of the roads that are going to be getting gravel this year. Is it possible to get a list? That's my first one. My second one is, what type of gravel do we actually put on? Because you see in a lot of other areas, it's crushed limestone. So what type of gravel is it putting on? Because sometimes after we've graveled the roads, it rains or whatnot, it looks kind of like mud and sand. You don't see like a gray tone of actually rock there. And then sometimes when it's graded, you don't see gravel. So example, the Clow Road was gravelled a few years ago, but it doesn't look like there's any gravel left on the road. And yes, it's been a couple of years, but it doesn't seem like it lasts very long. Am I explaining that right? Okay, thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, for the list, we'll get that list. We can give it to everybody if they want the list of the roads. The gravel gets tested every year before it comes to us, so it passes a sieve test. Some gravel we get is crushed pit run. Some gravel we get is crushed rock. Some of it's crushed limestone or granite. Sorry, right now around here. I don't know. It's tested and it's the way it is. I maybe depends on the traffic too. So
One of the things that I've heard over the years is that a lot of the gravel on the top gets kicked off into the ditches and we should be pulling it back out onto the roads, but I'm sure we'd be pulling grass and mud and all kinds of stuff out with it. But seems to be country roads. Philip.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we're not going to be re-tendering. So I'm just curious, in the last tender, how many respondents did we actually have? And how far under the other bids was Gimmel's in comparison?
to you, Madam Mayor, there was only 2 bidders last year, and there was probably $5,000 difference between them. But that was us grading, packing. We had like 3 or 4 staff there to do it. This is freeing up 3 or 4 of our staff to keep maintenance up. So
Okay.
And extension was a part of the contract. Okay.
to you, Madam Mayor, yes, that was in there that if we negotiated, we could extend it 1 year. So next year it'll have to go to tender no matter what. So
Okay. All right. Dan.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. We did a couple of test areas last year with recycled pavement. Is that something we'll look at again this year, Steve, or?
to you, Madam Mayor, yeah, I think it worked out pretty good, and it was actually really cost efficient. It was fairly cheap to get, so we'll probably try that on a couple, maybe some problem spots, and try it on some hills or something. Yep, cheaper than gravel it was. So
Certainly for hills and some bad corners, it really does make a difference. Okay. Cindy.
To you, Madam Mayor. So on a side note, I had a few emails and you guys are doing a bang up job. Everybody's very happy with the work. So tell the guys that we really appreciate that. But I was just wondering, have we secured someone for sweeping? Because I know we've had trouble and we had to call the guy back and he didn't really want to do it last time. So do we have someone that we can call this year?
to you, Madam Mayor, as soon as the budget gets passed, so I don't want to cut anything from there. So
Okay. All right. All those in favor of the motion? Carried. All right. Final speed bylaw. Moved by Nikki Gowdy, seconded by Cindy Kelsey. That council received the final speed bylaw report as presented by the Public Works Manager for information, and further that council approved bylaw 2025-14, being a bylaw to create updated speed zones within the township, and consider passing said bylaw later in the meeting. Discussion. Bill.
And thank you, Madam Mayor. I propose we defer this motion. In my opinion, it's still a work in progress and it's not ready to be passed.
Do you have any particulars of what isn't?
There are omissions and there are mistakes that don't create a defined provincial traffic control protocol.
And have you sent those to Steve and to Kathy?
Not yet, Madam Mayor. We have not been able to meet because of the flooding and the past weather, but they are aware.
Okay. All right. So deferral. So Bill's moving the deferral. Seconded. Don't have a seconder. Dan? Dan second. Okay, so I've read the motion. All those in favor of deferring this motion for until the next meeting or until we get some stuff sorted out? Okay, all those in favor of the deferral? 1, 2, 3. Those opposed to the deferral? 1, 2, 3, 4. So it is not deferred. So we go back to the original motion. Bill?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to point out that if this bylaw is passed, you'll be rewriting it anyway because it's of the same consistency of the bylaws that we've had in the past that are all being quashed.
Okay, Nikki?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just have a question for Councillor Everett. This bylaw was passed in principle a year ago, February, and it went to the lawyer. Why are you waiting now to say that there's problems with it when you had voted in favor of it back in a year ago, February?
Through Madam Mayor to Councillor Gowdy, because technically we only got the new bylaw or Schedule A technically. I apologize. It's Schedule A that I oppose, not the bylaw. There are mistakes in Schedule A that will discount the bylaw as far as the province is concerned.
Okay, and Schedule A makes up the part of the bylaw. So if you pass the bylaw, then you're passing Schedule A. However, Schedule A can be amended without changing the whole bylaw.
Yes, it can.
It will have to come back to be amended, but it would put the bylaw in place with the schedule being able to be easily amended.
Yes, actually, and Schedule A is the list of all the roads with the maximum, amended and maximum speed. And that's what Schedule A is, so.
Philip?
So I hear Councillor Evans' concerns. Be interested in staff's comments to understand, because they've not echoed any of the same concerns. I'd like to know what the concerns are specifically, because I mean, obviously I'm just taking what we have for Schedule A is listing our roads with the bylaws. So I don't know what else we're looking for to add to the schedule. I guess that's the concern I have. So.
Okay. Steve, do you have any comment on this?
To you, Madam Mayor, I don't, as of right now, I need to meet with Bill and see what the concerns are, but as of right now, I don't know what they are right now. I know some of them, but.
Okay. Well, we cannot defer it because that was defeated. So I'm going to read the motion again and we will vote on whether it goes forward. And if there's things that need to be changed, it will be coming back. So moved by Nikki, seconded by Cindy, that council receive the final speed bylaw report as presented by the Public Works Manager for information, and further that council approve bylaw 2025-14 being a bylaw to create updated speed zones within the township and consider passing the bylaw later in the meeting. So all those, Philip?
Sorry, just to confirm, this is approving for information and we're considering the bylaw.
Later in the
Later.
meeting.
Thank you.
You can,
We can approve this and still defeat the bylaw.
that's right.
Thank you.
Okay, so all those in favor of this motion? Carried. All right, so that's carried. All right. Anything else on roads? Dan?
Yes, thanks, Madam Mayor. It's been almost, I don't know how many months it's been since we looked into number 738 corridor for speed reduction. Is there anything on that? Like, do we get any feedback back to the township on that or hear from anybody or?
That was the
For you,
OPP.
Madam Mayor, to Councillor Meeks, we did hear back. They have zero interest in doing anything more than what's there right now. There's no, in their opinion, there's no concern with the speed, that it's not excessive enough and that the population is not there to warrant it. And that there has been times where in the past, they've given it to the township. I don't think that's something we would want to do, but it's something we could explore if that was what council wanted. But that was their opinion towards it, is that they give that to us and then we do what we want with it.
They would give changing the speed limit on Highway 7 to us?
Well, just that section, it would be that section, and then we could put up whatever speed we wanted in that section. And then we could also do
I know we were talking about doing traffic lights. We could do that as well, but then we'd have that entire corridor to have to maintain on top of the rest of what we have.
Yeah. Without any money to help out on an MTO highway. Phew.
So you don't think there's anything
I
we can
think the
do then?
OPP should make sure that people are not speeding through there.
And they are. And they are going to be doing the same as they did gave us the numbers. They are planning to do that again this spring,
Duncan,
or summer, sorry, summer.
I won't discuss this right now because we're talking about a speed bylaw, but I would like to see a report back to council with that answer so we can have an opportunity to discuss this properly, if possible.
okay, that is it for roads then. We are now going to finance, Mr. Michael. And budget bylaw report. We have a motion moved by Duncan McGregor, seconded by Bill Everett, that Council for the Township of Central Frontenac adopt the 2025 budget as presented by the treasurer with the recommendation to raise the municipal levy of $10,758,350. Lots of money. Any discussion? All those in, oh, Duncan?
Sorry, I'm not going to talk for a long time because I respect how long staff have worked on the budget and I respect what council did this year. As I said, I think we're just playing with the numbers, but I still disagree with the tax increase being as high as it is. So respectfully.
Okay, you vote accordingly then. Okay, all those in favor of passing the budget? Opposed? Carried. All right, vendor reports. Moved by Dan Meeks, seconded by Philip Smith. Whereas the Township Procurement Policy Bylaw requires an annual council review and approval of the vendor list during budget deliberations, now therefore it be it resolved that council approve the vendor of record list as presented by the treasurer. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. All right. And we have moved by Nikki Gowdy, seconded by Cindy Kelsey, that the Council of the Township of Central Frontenac accept and approve the 2025 excluded expenses report as required by Ontario Regulation 28409. Discussion? All those in favor? Carried.
Thank you, council and staff again for all the work on the budget. It is a lot of work and I can appreciate Councillor McGregor's comments, but it is a lot of work and I'm glad to get it done.
Yes.
Thank you.
And thank you for all your work in bringing it to us and being patient with us as we went through as many of the numbers and scenarios as possible. All right, now we are at committee reports. Central Frontenac Housing Committee, moved by Cindy, seconded by Nikki, that council received the draft minutes from the Housing Committee held March 26, 2025 for information, and further that council approve May 24th, 2025 as the date for the public meeting to gather resident feedback on the future use of the Hinchinbrook School site. Discussion. All those, oh, Nikki?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just have another clarifying question. So the public meeting that you're proposing, the people are going to come and they only are going to talk about housing. They can't come to the meeting and talk about what they see as what they would like to see on the site. This is only a housing meeting about possible proposal of housing there. It has nothing to do with a recreation center or anything like that. That's
Who
my
wants to
question.
answer that? Because I don't know.
Okay.
So,
Phyllis?
so at the housing committee, we talked about what it should look like and getting feedback from the public. And because the interest is around housing, the questions are formed around what type of housing, density of housing on that site could be possible and what the community would like to see as housing. From my perspective, we left the Charlotte Lake School site wide open to blue sky for, pools and whatever else you might want to have. And I believe we know the realistic outcome is it's not going to be a recreational hub or any big structure like that, you know, it's going to be a housing development most likely. So what kind of housing would they be looking for?
And is Sonia coming to run the meeting? Who's doing the meeting?
I do not believe Sonia is going to be coming. You know, between staff and the housing committee, we'll be looking after running the open house,
Okay,
gathering the feedback. So it'll be an online survey as well ahead of the meeting. So
okay. Nikki and then Dan?
So just a follow-up question to that. So when you post and give public notice for the meeting, could you make sure that's very clear? Because I think a lot of people felt that they were going to get a voice and be heard of the blue sky and anything that could possibly be there. So if you're proposing housing, like I'm not against this or anything like that, just be very clear on the notifications going out to the public that you only want to talk about housing.
Absolutely, because I think that's the intent from the housing committee.
So
and
Philip,
that's
you're
what's
going to do a write-up that you and Kathy together can make sure.
Jody's been helping us as well. So
Yeah.
don't forget Jody.
Okay.
But yeah, so the committee is putting together questions based around housing. So that'll be in the survey. So it'll be clear if you're filling out the survey, that's the information we're looking for.
Good. Dan?
I didn't think that was totally housing, Phil, like we did talk about other things too. I don't see what would hurt to talk about other things. I mentioned a long-term care facility and Kathy was going to look into that with the county.
County,
But,
yeah.
I mean, if we can get funding for something like that,
I don't believe I haven't, the meeting was canceled.
Oh.
That's why I haven't had a chance to talk, but Madam Mayor might be able to fill you in because she's with being on the county. Because that's who looks after the long-term care. Right, for homes, it's not the municipality.
I will just tell you that the county home is subsidized by the city of Kingston to a large extent. And if there's a build onto that home, it will be where it is. I can't see them moving north. They should, but I doubt if that will happen. And if it does, it would be many, many years down the road.
it's just,
Duncan? Oh, sorry.
there's just quite a need for more housing for seniors in our area, being that there's so many on the waiting list.
Yeah, you mean housing or
No,
home?
long-term care,
Long-term care. Yeah.
like Northbrook or Fairmount Home, because the waiting list is very, very high.
Yeah. Duncan?
Through Madam Mayor to the rest of council. So I wasn't sure if that's the conversation we had when Habitat for Humanity was here. We didn't necessarily focus it just purely on housing when we talked about doing an open house. It was more to give the public who had a large number of uses for the site an opportunity to voice their concerns. So are they reasonable? No, most of them are not. But the public still should have a right to come forward and suggest whatever they want to do with that site. It's their community, and we shouldn't pick for them before they've had that opportunity. So I think we should broaden the focus, understanding we may get some crazy ideas, and we may have to narrow it down 3 or 4 months after that.
Well, I'll tell you, any public meeting you have, you will get all kinds of things besides just what you're looking for. Philip?
So I guess if council's wishes that it's going to be an open house and you can gather any feedback you want, perhaps it's not a task for the housing committee and council directly can look after that.
I don't think, not my idea. Okay, what are we doing with the motion? Dan?
But isn't that the idea of a public meeting, to get feedback from all angles and all?
It is. Well, and when you have a public meeting, you can try and say, this is what we're here for, but you should probably have things up on the wall where people can put down what their ideas are, because you will get all kinds of ideas besides just what you're looking for. And that's what public input is. It's what people want to see. And then you deal with it from there. So
In all fairness, so we shouldn't be setting expectations that we're going to spend millions of dollars on something that's never going to happen. I think that's setting the public's expectations to unrealistic outcomes.
you can write it up what your expectation is, but I think Duncan is right. When the public come, you're going to get whatever they're thinking. And that's fair. Hopefully, they're going to think about housing first. So May 24th, do we know where it's going to be?
It's going to be at the Arham Fire Hall.
Okay, so that's not in the motion.
No, that's not in the motion, so they're
All right.
finalizing that.
Duncan,
Are you able to reread the motion? Because in the motion, it says nothing about housing. It just says that they're going to have a public meeting to gather resident feedback for future use of
it
Hinsbrook site.
does. That's
So
exactly what it says.
I'd be willing to work with members of council to try to broaden that focus, or staff.
Well, I think the housing committee will be the people who will be drafting what the wording will be.
Yeah.
Right?
If council wants a different direction, by all means, they can take it on.
I don't think they do. I think they just want to get somebody to do this. Dan,
Well, I think we can say housing, but we're gonna get all different kind of ideas on the public meeting.
okay, sorry. The council received the draft minutes from the Housing Committee held March 26th for information. And further, the council approve May 24th, 2025 as the date for a public meeting to gather resident feedback on the future use of the Hinchinbrook school site. So it's come from the Housing Committee minutes. So I think that's basically infers that we're looking at housing. Anyway, that's the motion that's in front of us.
Yeah, because I think that was the housing committee's intent was to have, it's to do with housing. So maybe that resolution should be changed to focus on housing, and
You can do
that's
a, not a deferral, but you can do a separate resolution that puts it more clearly. Duncan?
So I think that's the direction we need to take, is to either amend it or add an amendment in there so council can give direction to say, here's how we want the public meeting to happen.
Do an amendment. Motion.
Because what it would be is to if you can put it like focus on housing, because that's what the. Okay. Can I get that?
Yep.
Oh, well, never mind, I've got it right there.
Okay. We have a stretch. While Kathy's writing that, we could maybe go down to the bylaws. Our speed bylaw is moved by Dan Meek, seconded by Duncan McGregor. That bylaw 2025-14, being a bylaw to create updated speed zones within the township, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 8th day of April 2025. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we have a budget bylaw moved by Philip Smith, seconded by Bill Everett. That bylaw 2025-15, being a bylaw to adopt the estimates for the sum required during the year 2025 for the purpose of the Township of Central Frontenac and to set the appropriate tax rates, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 8th day of April 2025. Discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Opposed? Carried. So in here's the closed. Okay. Okay. Okay, folks, we have an amendment to the motion. And it is moved by Duncan and seconded by Cindy that council approve May 24th, 2025 as the date for a public meeting to gather resident feedback on the future use of the Hinchinbrook School site with a focus on housing. Is that better? Duncan?
Thank you for in that. No, I do not believe we should just focus on housing.
Okay. The committee does.
Yeah, it's a committee. Lots of-
Any further discussion? All those in favor of the amendment? 1, 2, 3, 4. 3 opposed? 1, 2, 3.
Mhm.
Carried. Okay, so the amendment is carried.
Doesn't mean you're not going to get other things, but the main focus for them is housing.
Okay, so now the initial motion.
You have to defeat that one. You
Oh,
have to.
So the initial motion was that council received the draft minutes from the housing committee and for that council approve 2024 as the date for a public meeting to gather resident feedback on the future use of the Hinchinbrook school site. So this we want to defeat because we have changed it. All those in favor? Opposed? Defeated. All right,
defeated.
that does that. All right. And now any notice of motions?
No, there is no.
Any giving of notice of motions?
No.
Any new or other business?
No, there are not.
Okay, now we're going to move into closed session.
Mhm.
Moved by Duncan and seconded by Nikki that council resolve into closed session pursuant to section 239(2) regarding A, the security of the property of the municipality or local board, B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. All those in favor?